All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Project Mystic Live. The light is being blown up right now because it's daytime for me, and we have two awesome guests. We'll talk about what's happening today at the Vatican. A lot of people are upset, and some people are happy about it, which is an interesting thing to see. But we're gonna make sure to talk about it. We'll share our screen. We'll give you the references, and please make sure to follow and support our beloved sponsors. We have Black Monk Rosaries. Use code Mystic for free shipping in the domestic United States. We have Disciple Fitness, and if you use the code Mystic, you'll have a huge discount on their gym gear. So, without further ado, let me introduce our awesome guests here. Guys, welcome to the live stream. Feel free to introduce yourself, do a shameless plug on your work here on social media, and let's get going.
Hey guys, I'm Clinton from Bar ZA. I also run the Pope Defenders channel on YouTube. I used to be known as B Cato, but then Twitter and YouTube got rid of my channel. Well, the Twitter thing was my own incompetence, so I couldn't really blame Elon for that one. So yeah, that's me. Just a Catholic dad, South African expat living in Philippines.
Cool.
And I'm Based Faith TV or Punished Faith TV now, as I also got taken down off of X. I've been Based Faith TV for a few years now. I was on Facebook first, but I got wiped out with a whole bunch of my friends a couple of winters ago. So you can find me at Punished FTV on Twitter. I'm also on Twitch and Rumble and YouTube. I'm on Facebook too, but I don't use that anymore. They did me dirty, so I'm holding a grudge. But I'm also a proud Catholic. You can see I got the GOAT, Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John. Is it Pope Saint or Saint Pope? Pope Saint. That's I always get them
Yeah, it's Pope
confused,
Saint.
but
Yeah.
you can find this shirt and more cool ones at my Bonfire shop, merch shop at bonfire.com/store/base. But I'm also a Catholic dad. And I'm very excited to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me, as always. It's a blast.
All right, all right. Yeah, make sure to support our guests. Well, if in order for us to beat the algorithm, you guys are gonna have to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, follow, and buy a shirt. I'm gonna start with giving you guys updates on our merch store. Recently, we were canceled by PayPal, and we had to take down an entire merch store that we built for a very long time. And here's some good news: our merch store will be back in 7 days. Now, there's going to be a lot of building time for it. There's going to be a lot of things that we have to make sure it doesn't get taken down again. So, merch store will be up in 7 days. We will also have, well, depending on how this conversation will play out, we might release new stuff. So, you can support it that way. And if you'd like to continue evangelizing the internet with us, please support our work at buymeacoffee.com/ Project Mystic DV. The link is going to be in the description and in the bio of all of our social media platforms. We recently just gave out more than 50 scapulars to people in our local parish. We couldn't do that without your support. My team and I have already discussed that we are going to document every single time we give out scapulars, rosaries, and prayer guides, because as of right now, that's our expertise. We may not be the best theologians on planet Earth, but I can guarantee you that we'll be your best friend in your journey in this faith. So, without further ado, let's talk about the most controversial topic in Catholic spaces today, which is so, Clinton, Baron ZA, you there? All right. So you
Yeah,
guys can see the
I'm here.
screen. All right, right. You
Hmm.
guys can see the screen, right? Okay.
Sure.
So this is an article from Catholic News Agency. Now, here's the thing: since this is a publication that is not affiliated with the Vatican, they only cover things in like Vatican activities, you should take all of their information with a grain of salt. But for this one, we have to make an exception because now we can officially say that Catholics are taking the anime sphere. This is gonna be an incredible Funko Pop for sure. Kids are gonna want yellow raincoats, yellow hoodies moving forward. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, this is going to be a better costume for the Halloween season next year, as opposed to them wearing demonic imagery. This is a good way to evangelize kids, just like how McDonald's creates a subculture because of the Happy Meal. Now it's our turn to dictate culture because of this. So I'm gonna read out just the headline here. Meet luce, which is the Italian word for light. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how you pronounce it. The Vatican's cartoon mascot for Jubilee 2025. So, ahead of the 2025 Jubilee, the Vatican has launched a cartoon mascot unveiled Monday as the cheerful face of the Catholic Church's upcoming Holy Year. The mascot, named Luce, which means light in Italian, is intended to engage a younger audience, guide visitors through the Holy Year. Archbishop Reno, I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm not going to pronounce it. I apologize, Archbishop. The Vatican's chief organizer for the Jubilee described the mascot as part of the Vatican's goal to engage with pop culture so beloved by our young people. Okay, this is one thing that you have to know. There's a lot of anime profile pictures on Twitter, and you do see them posting pictures about our Blessed Mother, encouraging people to go to Mass, reminding people about how awesome the saints are. And I think the Vatican just went to Twitter and started scrolling on the timeline, and now they have this. But yeah, let's listen to our guest speak, whichever one wants to speak first.
Can I go first? Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's a lot of degeneracy as well associated with anime, right? I used to watch a lot of anime back when I was an atheist. There's a lot of negative things in there, but I do think a lot of the newer content that they're making, and I'm seeing people send me, is a lot more wholesome. And if they're going that direction, yeah, there shouldn't be any real issue with it. But it also does raise a bit of a red flag because of all the history and the bad history within anime itself. So yeah, especially with paganism and with a lot of cleavage being shown for a lot of these characters unnecessarily, it could be a bit of an issue. So even though it might start off all wholesome and stuff, which is great, fantastic, there is a lot of negative things associated with that type of art in general.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think anime is kind of a hotbed for, I don't know if I don't want to scandalize anybody, but with like Coomer culture, people who are attracted to cartoons. I had an interaction earlier with this Catholic account who's into My Little Pony, and like I don't want to offend anybody. Don't think I'm singling you out, but like he posted a picture of some cartoon guy making out with a My Little Pony and was like, my wife, and I was like, dude, you got to delete this and go to confession right now. I don't know like what, maybe it's a wholesome thing, maybe it's ironic or something, but you should not be openly fantasizing and indulging in fantasies about making out with a cartoon horse. But my take ultimately on Luce, look, I love the Pope. I will never counter signal the Pope. I'm not going to counter signal the church. And just because we have so much opposition online, I will obstinately say this is awesome. Go Vatican, go Pope, go Catholicism, because I know that gets on people's nerves. But it just kind of strikes me as like out of touch, and maybe I'm out of touch. It's not just America that's Catholic. I know there are there's a billion Indian people, there's a billion Chinese people, there are so many different people in the world, and probably a lot of them like anime. But to me, it's like, how many times do we have to tell the church the youth just wants tradition and like holiness and reverence, and we want to go back to like the way things were, and they're just like, oh, wait, you guys like the Latin Mass? Here, have an anime Funko Pop. This is what the youth wants, right? And we're just like, no, well, no, no. We want the Mass. We want the Mass of the ages. We want the saints. We want to become saints. And there's like, oh, so anime Funko Pop, right? It's like, well, I'm very grateful that we have all of those aforementioned anime PFPs on Twitter, because I think they have a unique ability to take this and just run with it. And like, it was kind of the safety net where like the Vatican did something kind of cringe, and now Twitter is making it awesome, and now Luce is going to become like the meme icon of 2025, and I'm looking forward to that.
Right. Here's my take on it, and this is a personal take. It's like when you first encounter what a happy meal is. Regardless of age, right? Of course, I don't even eat at McDonald's because the mascot terrifies me. Like on a personal level, something inside me just says this is not the place to go in. Like this sounds like it's a trap. You know what I mean? I don't want to scandalize anyone. If you like McDonald's, if that's part of your culture, okay, enjoy. But for me personally, there's a reason why I don't eat at McDonald's. And there's a reason why Filipinos invented Jollibee, right? Because if you look at Jollibee compared to Ronald McDonald, right? Which one you think kids would run towards, right? Now, but going back to the Happy Meal, when I first received mine, this was a long time ago when McDonald's started booming here in the Philippines. I was like, okay, so I get a meal and I get a fun toy. It was a small toy car that it was all the rage. Hot Wheels was the thing back then, and I enjoyed it. And I didn't have to go into. I mean, I didn't have to go near a scary clown, right, to tell me, okay, McDonald's has okay food. I know a lot of you will be in the comments, and the McDonald's is the best, but objectively speaking, it's Wendy's. So we will probably discuss that in the future. But you know, the Happy Meal introduced me to McDonald's as this subculture thing that people like. Um, when I was a kid, there were 40-year-old, close to 50-year-old people getting Happy Meals. And then you'd think, oh, maybe because they have kids. They don't have kids. They have an entire wall in their house just filled with all of these Happy Meals, right? And it gave them joy. It's a fun thing. It's a wholesome fun thing, right? Now I haven't reviewed every single Happy Meal item ever released because that's physically impossible for somebody like me who's a dad, a husband, like the founder of an apostolate, and when we have to do a lot of things, right, in the behind the scenes. So I would say the argument for um, Luce would be how you would approach a Happy Meal, right? It's just it's a fun thing, and it introduces people to what what it's all about. And here's my argument against Luce, right? And I will side with all the trads that are upset about this, because I'm not taking the middle ground. I'm just saying that because my kid saw this, she's like, "Dad, I need a yellow hoodie," like because this is so interesting. This is so cool. But here's my opinion, right? This is for the kids, so we'll give it to them. Let them have fun with it, right? But for all the rest of the grown-ups, I want the restrictions of the Latin Mass to be lifted yesterday, right? I want to be able to go because if I go to Latin Mass where I'm at, I have to drive 60 kilometers away to get there. I can still attend it, and there's no issues when I go there when I park my vehicle and I attend it. It's amazing. It's what Latin Mass should be. There's no loud guitar noises, there's no people clapping, there's no holding hands in the Our Father, and people aren't creating a ruckus during the sign of peace, right? And I mean, just don't. Here's my advice for you guys. If you just did leg day, don't do it on Latin Mass day, because you'll be kneeling and standing up and kneeling and standing up all the time, right? And you'll have a hard time, So, please, if the church can do this for the young kids and give them this cultural icon that they're going to enjoy, that's going to encourage them to go to church, because you might see kids wearing yellow hoodies or yellow rain jackets go to mass in the rainy season because of this, and now their kids want to go to church because of it. I would say that's a good thing, but for all the grown-ups who just want to have the fullness of the Catholic faith, please give us the Latin Mass. Maybe January 1st, 2025, right? Maybe that's the surprise that they're gonna give us. They're gonna take care of the kids, give them something fun, and then for all of us, for the rest of us, please give us back the Latin Mass, like at full force. You know what I mean? But yeah, you guys.
Uh, I just want to respond to you quickly. Look, you guys are right. We need less guitars and we need more chanting always. But in defense of McDonald's, right? Because you brought up McDonald's. I've been living in the Philippines now for a few months, and one of the things that I enjoy doing is I go to obviously Jollibee and I check it out. But a lot of the promotions that they've done recently has a lot of women that's dressed very immodestly, right? So you'll see like a massive poster outside of the Jollibee, and then you'll see all these models with all their makeup and their hair is done and they're like small little outfits. So I've never seen something like that at McDonald's, right? I just wanted to bring that up.
That's a great point. I've always wanted to try Jollibee as an American. I don't think we have any in the States. I would love to try it. I've seen pictures and it looks delectable. But I wasn't aware of the scandalous nature of their advertisements. That's definitely not something you see with McDonald's. If anything, they go the other way, and the demographic they tend to use in their advertisements, at least here in the States, is like a palate cleanser if you're experiencing temptations of the concupiscent appetites. But I did like the McDonald's that ad with like the anime family, and like the little girl is feeding her dad a French fry or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a huge thing a few months ago. But yeah, I mean, as I think, look, anything they would have done, people are going to make it weird and gross. It's a rule of the internet. But I think definitely I've already seen a bunch of Twitter accounts start to like Rule 34 this, and it's outrageous. And I don't want to get too far in it. Don't look that up if you don't know what that is. I probably shouldn't have said it, but I just I guess I agree with Mystic. It's for the kids. I think that's cool, and I love that the big Catholic accounts on here. Like I've seen Pine Sap and V Saintly and Christian Wagner have been posting about it either for or against, and it's like a fun, engaging conversation right now. It's kind of lighthearted banter back and forth, and that's sort of a breath of fresh air with all of the scandal and the constant fighting between Catholics and also Catholics versus Ortho Bros and Protestants and stuff. I think this kind of brought like a little bit of levity to the conversation about Catholicism and the direction we're headed. Now at least we can be like, Catholic is or anime is Catholic, it's ours. Ortho Bros, you don't have anime girls. Catholics do. Protestants, you don't have your own anime character mascot. Catholics do. So we're taking over the world one medium at a time.
Yeah, so, well, it's good to know. That means that my family will abstain from consuming Jollibee in the next couple months until they change their marketing. I'm definitely gonna stop by today and check it. If it's bad, then we will abstain from consuming Jollibee, because we don't support immodest anything. Actually, it doesn't just apply to marketing, but like in real life, we prefer that our women wear proper clothes. Not just at mass, but like outside. Life is much better if everybody's modest. You know what I mean? So
Oven,
yeah,
I just have a question
yeah,
for you, right? But what do you think about Miss Universe then? Because it's massive on this side, right?
yeah. Okay. here's the thing. If you're Filipino and you've been to the Philippines, you'll see almost every town has some sort of beauty pageant, right? Um, my response to that would be to blame the Spanish. This is not a knock on all of our Spanish brothers and sisters. I mean, I'm half Hispanic, myself, but this culture was brought to us by them. And if you go to religious activities as well, these beauty pageants are a thing now. I don't attend them, and I mean, I don't actively seek them out, and that applies to my family as well. It's okay to appreciate the beauty of God's creation in people, just like how both of you are really cool chads, and um, we we love everyone, But I think that as a culture, we should start ending that as part of the human experience. You know what I mean? Because when you see your spouse, you're definitely going to be appreciative of not just of how your spouse looks, but how she takes care of everything, the house, and she does her part in society. We should appreciate that. When you see a Ford Raptor outside that's fully kitted out, you'd appreciate that too. Car shows are okay because cars, unless the paint job is immodest, are like a technical marvel, So I think it's human nature to appreciate beauty in every aspect of creation, including the creations that we make. But beauty pageants should never be a thing, at least in my opinion. So if you will vote for me as Emperor of the Philippines, that will be item number 10.
And I think you had a point to make.
It's
I
okay. It's
just wanted
open
to
mic.
say,
Go
right,
for it.
you can't really vote to become emperor of Philippines. I'm just saying, right? It has to be, you have to go the traditional route in becoming emperor of Philippines. But also with the beauty pageants, I'm fully against it, right? The reason for it is, as we've seen in the last few years, how it's been used to promote progressive propaganda and all this, right? Some of the ladies that actually won the competition, they aren't even ladies, they're dudes. So it's getting quite bad, and I think we have to
Ugh.
return to something a bit more traditional. So yeah, so maybe we can have singing, or music like back in the 16th century or 17th century. A lot of the girls that were becoming ladies and they were entering society, they had certain skills that they had, where they were singing and they were reciting poetry in different languages or playing a musical instrument. I think something like that would be fine and would be modest. But beauty contests, in their very nature, I think, is kind of flirting with degeneracy.
I have to agree. And just as a personal anecdote, when I was in high school, when I lived in Chicago, I dated this girl briefly who was a pageant girl. And the good side of the pageant world and of like modeling and that kind of stuff is that a lot of those girls are kind of taught how to be classy and sophisticated, how to carry themselves in a very feminine way and to present themselves in a dignified and like they take care of themselves, and they are supposed to be sort of a role model or an image for young girls to look up to and to want to become. They're supposed to be intelligent and talented and have a big heart and care about other people. So there's a good aspect to it. But on the other hand, her and I don't want to be I don't want to be a jerk about it, but her parents were, your typical stage parents. Like, she had these very bright green eyes, but her mom made her wear blue colored eye contacts. And it was like just weird. It was very weird, like the things that they put these girls through. And I guess, as you get older and older, those things kind of become ingrained in you, and you become sort of like consumed with vanity and with self-image. But I think if we could have beauty pageants that eliminated bikinis, like the whole bathing suit competition, like, first of all, bikinis should just be illegal, I think. And a lot of people might take issue with that, but like, you'll hear a lot of priests, and I want to say a couple of saints. I don't know. I've heard a bunch of sermons on it, but I never remember the names or whoever they're quoting. I just kind of remember the general idea. But they talk about how like Catholics generally just shouldn't go to the beach. And I'm Italian. Like, I love the beach. I'm never more at home than when I'm at the beach. But you can't deny that as a man, going to the beach, it's just a constant near occasion of sin. It's a constant occasion of scandal. And I basically have to like look at the sand or just look at the water. Like, you can't look around at other people, because women, their normal bathing suit, like not even being scandalous by today's standards, are like less than underwear. And they have these women at these beauty pageants going on stage and like, walking around switching their hips in their underwear basically, and everybody in the crowd is judging them. And look, maybe some people are like superhuman virtue, but I don't think as a man you can expose yourself to that and not be scandalized or not led into at least having some concupiscent thoughts, or some sort of indulgence of appetites that you shouldn't indulge. And even if it's your wife on stage and you're like, oh well, that's my wife, I can look at my wife, well, now everybody else is looking at your wife, and that's somebody's daughter. Like, I have a daughter now. I can't even imagine putting my daughter into something like that, and like all the creeps out there and all the people that prey on children and prey on women. It's very, I don't know how you separate the two things. I think if you at least just said, we're not going to do bikinis, we're not going to do the bathing suit modeling, we're just going to have modest clothes, and you're like Clinton said, you have just the talents, like you have them singing or doing their whatever the performance of their talent is. You have like trivia questions or ask them about current events and that kind of stuff. I think that would be totally fine. But the emphasis on beauty, on image, on the immodesty of it, I think it's hard to separate those two. And if we can somehow do that, I think we should start immediately. But otherwise, we should just make it illegal, along with bikinis.
Can I just touch on what he said quickly? I completely
Yeah.
agree. I've gone out with a few girls in my life, right? Back in my degeneracy days. Not actually the worst type of thing, which we can get into later, but when I used to take girls on a date. One of the funny things is they will shut the door when they get ready and the date waits or whatever, right? Because they're changing dresses from their undergarments to trying on different dresses. But that same girl will go to the beach in a bikini, like you said, and the bikini is a lot more revealing, for instance, than her undergarments. And then she'll be perfectly fine. So I think it's a bit of, it actually reveals a lot of indoctrination which happened in our society, where one has become normalized and it's just as bad as the other or even worse. And the other one, they're so desensitized too, right? So we see this a lot with other things in our society as well, like with abortion, for instance, right? A lot of these left wing and progressives, they're so desensitized to something which is so vicious and evil and so brutal that they just think, oh no, it's just cells that we're getting rid of. Oh, it's just it's not, they don't take it seriously. Whereas if they have to physically see, for instance, a child in Gaza, a lot of these radical left wingers, they'll be overly emotional and very worked up. And it's just one of those things where they've become so desensitized to one, and the other one is so socially acceptable, but both are evil.
Right. By the way, this is open mic, so you can interject anytime you want. Okay, guys. So I think you got everybody can see our screen right now. R- right. So first of all, before I state my point here, um, I'm going to fight anyone who says that nuns are not a gift from God. They are a gift from God. So you're gonna have to fight me. Okay. You can't disagree with this. So you don't actually. I have a daughter, and she doesn't have to be a nun in order for her to live a chaste, beautiful life that is designed by God. What she does have to do is to cut out all the crap that we can wear all these skimpy clothes to go to the beach, and we can show our bodies to other people. Which, by the way, is, to Barron's point, they close the door, right? I think what we should change is the mindset here. Um, First, in order for you to make a proper change in the mindset, there has to be a tangible and like an objective standard that they can point to. So we would go with based face TV's point here to make bikinis illegal, right? Because how much does a bikini cost? You're paying money for less clothes. Like, bro, when we launch, listen, guys, when we launch the merch store, our hoodies will be $40, $45. But you buy a bikini, if you look it up on, please don't look it up on Amazon. I'm sorry. You shouldn't. But the average price, you can probably Google the average price of what it is. You're paying a lot of money for less clothes, you know? So, yeah, make bikinis illegal. And we should teach the new. I mean, we're old now, right? I think Barons is the oldest here because he's 59, just like Lex. They're both our favorite boomers.
You look
We
good
love
for
them, dude.
59, dude.
Dude, they live in our hearts, dude. They're our boomers. We love them so much. So,
Yeah, I
um,
suddenly
you
just
know,
gained like 20 years, almost 20 years.
It looks great on you.
yeah. So, we're old now. We have to change the future by teaching our kids that wearing a bikini is unacceptable. Um, and your body, if you're married, is only reserved for your spouse because that's how God designed it, right? And that's God's command. Everyone else can just not have it. And I mean, if you're Filipino, you don't really need to go to the beach because everywhere is flooded. Like it's flooded here, dude. When it rains, the flood goes here. So you're pretty safe, even if you wear a bikini during typhoons here in the Philippines, the water's here anyway. So you can't, you don't have to worry about chastity or whatever. But yeah, you get the point, right?
That's like dark,
But yeah,
wholesome.
yeah. But yeah, beach. I mean, there's 7,100 islands here. There's probably a beach like 15 kilometers in any direction you're going to. So for us though,
Isn't that a bit
um,
isn't that a bit
yeah,
tricky in the Philippines because it's so hot here, right? That the people don't wear a bunch of clothes. So modesty, in my opinion, right, with a modest dress that the girls do, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's covering every part of the body. It just has to cover. It should look wholesome, in my opinion.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, we don't advocate for burqas here because we're all Catholic. But if you do want to wear something that's covering most of you, you can go to a Carmelite monastery or a Franciscan monastery because I mean, again, nuns are a gift from God. So I'm gonna let you guys cook. Um, what else? What else do you want to talk about today?
I had a thought just now, and it completely escaped me as I was listening to you guys go back and forth because there's just a lot of good points being made, and you got me with not having to go to the beach in the Philippines because it's all flooded, and that's it's such a
It's so
tragedy,
crazy,
and
right?
it's so sad to think
Sorry
about
to
that.
interject.
I don't
I'm
know,
doing
please.
this a lot, but sorry, man. I just wanted to give you a basic rundown, right? When I came from South Africa to the Philippines, we went to Pampanga, and that was just after, I think, a typhoon. The streets are so flooded, the fish are in the streets, swimming up and down. My father-in-law's house, he has 3 stories. His first story is a lake now, and you can actually catch the fish at the bottom of the house if you actually want to catch some fish.
There's a silver lining to every dark cloud, I guess. Um, in all seriousness, very tragic what's happening in the Philippines with all the people that are affected by the calamities over there, and we should definitely pray for them and for all the people who lost their lives, all the people that, I guess food isn't necessarily the biggest issue because you can just kind of like, while you're laying in bed, just kind of like reach down and pick up a fish, but very sad. But I do remember what I was going to say. As far as trying to raise up the younger generations and the future generations to sort of feel the same way we do about modesty and about the nature of sin and vice and the near occasions of sin and all that kind of stuff. I think this kind of lends itself to the style of a lot of us on Twitter, on social media in the Catholic sphere, which is, and I was talking to one of my other buddies. You'll have to excuse me. This is his name. I'm not trying to scandalize anybody. His name's Queefy Blinders on Twitter. He's a very funny, very wholesome guy who's discerning conversion into Catholicism. I believe he is converting. But his hang up sort of was that all of these guys on, you know, social media, all these guys that are streaming that are Catholic, he feels like a lot of them are very stuffy and they don't relate to people. Like the humor is kind of taboo, and they try very hard to be like as virtuous as possible. And for those of us who are in the faith and who are trying to take it seriously, and I say trying to because I'm terrible at it, we understand the necessity of taking virtue and vice very seriously, because eternity is eternal, and we are going to go to one of two places when we die, and it's going to last forever. So you have to know that you're going to, you have to make sure that you're going to the right place. But for people outside the church, I think it's easy for people to look at a lot of the influencers that they follow, a lot of the streamers and the big accounts, and just see like some of these guys are really funny. They post really funny memes, but a lot of it's very scandalous. And I think sort of at least one of the avenues to combat the degeneracy of modernism and the secular culture is sort of to like ridicule and humiliate. And you have to be loving and charitable about it to an extent, but you also have to make it so that the observers, the younger people that are seeing these interactions, they look at us as the cool ones. That like when somebody's like, oh, you want to make bikinis illegal, what are you, like a Muslim or something? You're gonna like, what are you gonna put all the women in burqas? Like, why don't you just go back to the 1950s or something? Like, people are generally in our culture, that's the thought they're gonna have, and we need to replace that with like this idea that if you're championing immodesty or any form of degeneracy, you are a person that's worthy of scorn and ridicule, rather than us stuffy, you know, no fun allowed Catholics. Like, we have plenty of fun. We have an awesome time. You should come and watch some of our streams sometimes, or maybe sit down on one of our private conversations, because those get a little spicy. I'm going to be honest. We'd have to bleep out a whole bunch of stuff to put those online, but just being and I know this is going to sound cringe and lack of self-awareness alert maybe, but like, we have to be the cool ones. We have to be the ones that other people look up to and they're like, wait a minute, I like this guy's opinion. He just totally owned that guy that's basically saying porn should be allowed on X and it should just be allowed in general, and oh, masturbation's normal and healthy, and women should be able to wear G-string bikinis to the beach, and why not? This is America, it's freedom. Like, we have to help the younger generation see that like, it's not cool to be a degenerate. It's cool to be modest and virtuous and righteous and a strong, upstanding Catholic who truly believes in Christ and would die for him. And the rest of it's just lame and cringe.
Right. Well, here's the thing about like Catholics in general, because I've been wanting to talk to you guys about it. We call it Catholic guilt. It's a it's a grave oversimplification of what Catholics, especially the ones who are trying to be faithful Catholics, are going through on a daily basis, right? Let me put it this way. If God removed a single cell from your body every time you disappoint him, you disintegrate immediately. Every time, and I'm trying to make this lighthearted, but that's what it would look like. And that's what Catholics are going through on a daily basis. They may not have self-awareness in the immediate moment that they disappoint God, but if God would remove a single cell from your body every time you disappoint him, you would disintegrate, and everyone would disintegrate. Everyone on earth would. And what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to live in a way that pleases God, and at the same time encourage people to become Catholic. And it's really hard. You know what I mean? Because it's like you have this white sheet of paper, right? It's clean as ever. And then there's an ink blot anywhere it. Your eyes are just gonna go into that ink blot and ignore the rest of that white sheet of paper. And people are like that. Even though we try to encourage people to do their prayers, to be good Christians, to help out in their parish, or volunteer for military service and be in the reserves because you don't want to be sent overseas for a war that's not for your country, right? That's why I'm in the reserves. Because I don't want to be sent overseas to fight a war that's not for me. But to the point, there's a lot of things that you can do in society to bring Jesus to everyone else's life. And it doesn't have to be over religious. Just look at um, Luce as an example, right? A lot of the kids hate going to church, and this is true. I'm a parent, and in my parish, there's a lot of kids who kick and scream because they want to leave the church because it's boring. But now they have something that'll encourage them to go to church. Their parents can just let them wear a Luce costume, but they have to cover the knees for modesty, because the anime character has, I think, 2 inches above the knees too short. So maybe they'll wear jeans or whatever. But these kids are now going to go to church. When we do gaming live streams, we don't even, I mean, we always win at Fortnite and we never take damage. And then we still promote the Catholic faith, right? You can look at the biggest meme accounts, the biggest Catholic meme accounts on social media. It's all Catholicism. It's funny. Sometimes it's edgy. Sometimes it makes. I mean, the seething makes my day. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. All the seething is making my day. So big shout outs to Patrick Neve. He's Catholic Pat on Twitter. It's so funny. But the point is, you can bring Jesus in any aspect of your life. You can go to your office. Well, here's what I can tell you. The local power plant has a portrait of Pope Francis that's taller than me. Like it's this full size picture of Pope Francis in the lobby. When you go in, after security checks your bags, they immediately see Pope Francis inside the local power plant. You can bring your faith anywhere, and it doesn't have to be abrasive. It doesn't have to be aggressive. That's what we're doing here right now. In this podcast, that's what Based Faith TV is doing, or Punished FTV on Twitter is doing. That's what Pope Defenders is doing on YouTube. YouTube, please don't nuke his account. This is so tiresome. He has to like redo all of his content, but it's horrible, dude. I mean, all three of us have been canceled in like in a certain way, in different ways, but we're still here because we want you guys to love Jesus the way he wants to be loved, and it can only be done inside the Catholic Church. It can only be done through the liturgy of the Mass and how we treat each other as human beings, so that's why we crack jokes. We put up memes, we have funny edits, sometimes we have like 50 cal pistols on camera because we want you to go to church. That's what it means, and banning degeneracy in society is going to take a while. It took 100 plus years. No, actually, it took 1,500 years for degeneracy to start in society. You know what I mean, right? It took 1,500 years for degeneracy to be normal. It started with, oh, I disagree with the church. That's how it all started. If you look at 99% of society, because the documents that we have right now aren't complete. Some of them have been lost to time. But if you look at history, I'm not talking about church history, I'm talking about world history, right? Where significant figures of history, as far as they're concerned, it only happened in 1521 onwards. And everything just went to crap. People are now wearing cleavage dresses inside the church. Um, they have gay marriage now, and divorce is being handed out like candy because marriage is no longer important, and now it's breaking up families and the kids are now affected, so they have mental health issues, and then they listen to an atheist on YouTube and now they're atheists, right? It all started with, I disagree with the church, and then boom, everything after 500 years, everything turned to crap. So that's why it's going to take us a long time to fix society, right? It's not going to be easy. It may not even happen in our lifetimes. So that's why we have to start with our kids. We have to start with the young people in our parish. Invite them to rosary rallies. Somebody just had a satanic mass, right, in the US 800 years ago, and I need you to Google this. 800 years ago, if it happened, the entire town would be there with the local law enforcement. They would gather wood and oil and a lot of rope, right? And of course, you know what I mean, right? I just want to like emphasize that people didn't stand for this kind of thing, and the pushback was much worse back then, right? Um, Back then, 800 years ago, it was really hard to make concrete because they don't have the fast acting ones that we have now. So now, if we do make concrete, the big round ones that are like probably 80 pounds minimum, right? And we have bigger boats now, so we can load, more problems into those pieces of concrete and send them to Jesus. um, we can do it much more efficiently now, but because the system is designed to prevent us from advancing the kingdom of God, with kindness and compassion, we have to really just first make tangible changes in society, make abortion unthinkable and illegal for every single case, make divorce unthinkable and illegal for every single case, because you don't accidentally get married, right? You made a promise to God and to society that you're going to take care of this person, whoever your spouse is going to be, and you have to you have to take your promise seriously. Your citizenship must be based on like how you it's not just it's kind of hard for me to say this because I live in a republic, but there's certain people who shouldn't vote, like people who are pro-abortion. If you let them vote, they'll make abortion legal, and now everybody has to deal with this problem, right? So, your right to vote should be determined by your adherence to Catholic moral teaching, something like that, right? It's gonna take a while, but we do see young people in society, even with anime profile pictures, they're promoting our faith, and our faith built this society, right? I recently posted something that almost got taken down on other platforms because I said, if someone says that religion is a problem for society, ask them what date and time it is, and it will bring up Pope Sylvester, right, and Pope Gregory, because they figured out the date and time even before all this digital age came to be, But yeah, I'm sorry, I was rambling over, but I just got like really pissed off because someone posted uh, a very immodest anime post, and it's a human being and like some humanoid animal thing, and it makes it looks like that they're in a relationship, and it's man, it's just I'm gonna let you guys cook, dude.
Okay. I want to touch on a few things that you said, right? And this is kind of going back a long way in this chat. You know the reason why I put these glasses on and I took them off? It's because you said, like, I'm almost 60 years old. I'm like, okay, how does a 60-year-old behave, right? Do I put these glasses on because my eyes are so weak now, right? Anyway, uh, with the voting thing, I'm actually very extreme in my opinion in regards to democracy, right? So I don't believe there should be a democracy. I don't believe anybody should vote. I
Let's
think
go.
society, right? The problems in society started not when women got the right to vote, because the gateway drug for women having the right to vote was men having the right to vote, right? Because it was inevitable once they got the right to vote that women would come next. And when that happened, everything went downhill, right? So it's a slow decline, and then all of a sudden we're going down that hill and we start falling. So trace it back, it's voting itself. We should return to either theocracy or a monarchy. That is the best system that we could possibly hope for, because at least the people in charge wouldn't try to replace the demographic once they start losing favor with their people, right? They wouldn't start moving other people in to start voting for them and then bribing their community. So that's my opinion regarding the democracy. So yeah, I think there's a lot of issues in our society, and a lot of these politicians right now that we see in power, they pretend to be religious. I think in the US, you guys even have Kamala Harris. she went to like a propaganda church where everybody was praying over her, and they all go on and they cheer and they do that. That's outwardly, I don't know, I don't know what kind of person would fall for that, right? That calls himself a Christian, or why even do it? Because it's such a insult to somebody, not even Catholics, right? Even devout Protestants. Even a Muslim can watch that and they'll be like, you know what? These people, they don't believe there's a God. This is just like a show that's in Hollywood. It's that type of thing. It's a performance. The Republicans in the US, I see a lot of similar type of things, like when they had that lady on, where she was, what's it, Weiger you or whatever, like, that's, it's so completely the roots that they're following. It just demonstrates why democracy in itself is evil, and why a politician will do anything just to gain power, and that a monarch doesn't suffer from that same problem. Neither does a pope that governs society. They have the College of Cardinals. They have the people that keep them in power, being loyal to the faith at least, and they have the belief that unites them, whereas politicians are very agnostic. And it's that agnosticism which opened the door for all kinds of degeneracy to take root, right? So that's my opinion regarding that, guys.
Father Pimpson's Holy Crusade looks like he wants to call in, but I am an actual boomer over here. I'm like a 30-something-year-old boomer, and I have no idea how one would call in. So he commented on the post I shared, but I do absolutely agree. I don't think anybody should vote, but I think the problem with the United States, and I don't know how much this is still the case because we are sort of waning in our power and influence in the world, but we have for a very long time had sort of a cultural stranglehold on sort of the perception of what freedom is and what democracy means and charging the way for liberating the world and all that stuff. And I mean, America was never a Catholic nation. We were Protestant from its conception, even though it was discovered and essentially colonized by a lot of Catholics. Christopher Columbus was Catholic, Leif Erikson was Catholic, Amerigo Vespucci was Catholic. But to get to the point where, we're a Catholic sort of theocracy or a monarchy, I think that's like a long way away. I think we should start working towards it immediately, but it's going to be sort of a hard sell for a lot of people here because, well, for one thing, we have fluoride in our water supply, and people are heavily fluoridated here in the United States. You're going to see a lot of that. It's like people are just eating tubes of toothpaste for breakfast, if I had to guess. But people, like, if you even suggest...
Water's making the frogs gay.
It's turning the friggin' frogs gay! That's our classic Uncle Alex Jones. He might not be the most red-pilled and based, but he sort of walked so the rest of us could run. But I mean, it's a very serious problem. Americans in a lot of ways are very stupid. We're egocentric, and it's hard for an American person who's been brought up on this slop of how each one of us is just as important as the next, and our opinion and our vote matters just as much as everybody else. Like, I always say, if we were to start, like, if just for instance, like, I'm obviously kind of a swarthy Italian guy, and I run in the same circles as a lot of guys who are, very pro-white, white nationalists, that kind of stuff. I personally cut my teeth and sort of gained a lot of internet clout for being expelled from law school for It's Okay to Be White flyers. But I always tell people, like, if we got to the point where you guys are starting to ship out all of the people and just like, oh, well, your eyes are too brown and your skin's too tan and your hair's too brown, you got to go back to Italy. I'd be like, all right, great. Fine. Send me back to Italy. I'll go live in Italy. That's fine. I'm totally okay with that condition. But the vast majority of people, if you were to be like, only these people should vote or nobody should vote, they would take that as a personal attack and be like, you're saying I can't vote, but I should vote. And like, they will never be able to separate themselves from the greater good. And I think this concept of the greater good in the mind of your average American boils down to what is the greater good in my perception for me, and not so much like, if you could break it down and be like, if we eliminated voting entirely and we installed a Catholic monarch, or just like a divinely coronated monarch, this and this would improve, this would get better. We would get rid of all of these moral degeneracies and all of these moral evils. It would be very difficult for any given American to see their way through themselves to that point and be willing to sacrifice that most sacrosanct of freedoms of voting. But anyway, hey, Father Pimpson, it's good to have you here, bud.
What's up, man? How y'all been tonight?
Good, man, just kicking it, having a cookout over here with the fellow Cath bros.
All right. I'm over here at my boss's house, puppy sitting for his two pit bulls.
Don't get eaten.
No, they're actually an exception to the rule, if you'd say. Can y'all see me on the camera well enough?
Yeah, we can see you and we can hear you.
Meet Ozzy.
Yo, that's
Oh,
chunky,
neat.
bro.
This is Ozzy. He likes eating out of the cat box.
Okay, he's pretty cute, I'll be honest.
Hopefully, he doesn't eat the cat.
Oh no, he loves the cats and the cats
Unless he's
love
from
him.
Haiti, of course.
But he eats out of the litter box like it's friggin' almond roca or something.
Okay, so before we proceed, I want to make sure that you guys can see this. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yeah,
I can.
All right, make sure that you pump the volume on this one.
I can't hear it. I don't know if you guys can, but I know exactly
yeah,
what it's
sound's
saying.
not coming through.
No sounds coming through?
Yeah,
Aww,
no,
come on! Okay, here's how we can fix it. Join our Discord and see all the memes that we have in store for you guys. It's so sad that I can't play it. But yeah, we have Father Pimpson here online with us. We're gonna give him a moment to cook and share his thoughts on today's issues. Father Pimpson, did you see Luce?
Yeah, I was actually I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about that personally. I'm not necessarily against it. I've just never really been that big into anime, but beyond Dragon Ball Z. I just really when it came to entertainment and stuff as a kid, I just tended to follow in my father's footsteps, and that's what he introduced me to was Mortal Kombat, Dragon Ball Z, and so on and so forth. I didn't really have that much of an extensive foray into the world of anime.
Classic Mortal Kombat.
But you know, Dragon Ball Z, the original one, Dragon Ball, that's also quite dodgy, right? It's also a bit degenerate.
A lot of weird sexual jokes in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not
really
sure
bad actually. Like when Goku was a kid. I'm not gonna. Please don't look this up. If you have children, be a grown up and just take my word for it because I'm old enough to have seen Goku grow up myself. Right? Back in the day, back in 1984 or 85, and then this episode was like republished in 1991 and 92 when Goku was Dragon Ball was being translated into English because unfortunately Americans get the good things last for some reason. But um the original anime was showing Bulma, right? And there was an indecent joke because Bulma was a teenager at this time and Goku was a kid, right? So you get the point. This is the type of joke that you do not introduce to children. People at the time laughed at it because, oh, it's just a cartoon. But that was one of the reasons why that when my parents, were made aware of this because we're living in Asia, we got to this media first. They were like, you shouldn't probably like watch this anime because of this. My parents were always there for us to explain why some media on TV should never be shown to kids, or that they should have an R rating or something. So even though it was a harmless joke because it's a cartoon, there's a joke between a child and a teenager girl, right? And it's not cool. I only started taking Dragon Ball seriously when Krillin exploded, but other than that, I mean, they're smiling because they remember this, right? It was 2 episodes of Goku just like getting angry, and then we have this transition into this magnificent Super Saiyan, which is now a meme. You know, like it's now a meme for us. But
Feels like the
I'm
greatest
hoping
moment
that
of my life.
yeah, the greatest moment of anime history. I hope that you guys can now hear this. Let's try it again.
Like I'm putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap, gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Gay. Frogs. Won't you fight for your life? Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. I don't like the frogs. Gay. Friggin' frogs. Frogs. Friggin' frog crap. Won't you fight the frogs? It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Frogs.
All right. So yeah, big shout outs to Mr. Alex Jones. We hope that you become a devout Catholic and
This is how my
continue.
generation did it.
Yeah.
Classic.
But
Classic.
yeah, that was sick, dude. Yeah. So let's hear out Father Pimpson. We'll let him take the floor. Since,
All right, what should I start with? What's the subject?
it can be anything, brother. It's a call-in stream. You can contribute however you want.
For we talked about luce, we talked about modesty, about bikinis and beauty pageants. We talked about McDonald's versus other fast food joints. We just went through our anime arc. So yeah, any of that stuff or whatever, anything that might entice people to get in here and join us for a conversation, because obviously there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff to talk about. How about we just dive in with a big one? Thoughts on the election?
Okay, so since Barons and I are both overseas, we will abstain from this topic, and we'll let Punished FTV do his take. Go for
Hey,
it.
to be fair, that doesn't stop the Europeans. I'm just saying.
So true.
Stop them.
So true. Or the
Doesn't stop
Israelis, for that
Eagles
matter.
either.
So my take on the election, it's been a tough one, because a lot of my friends and a lot of the people that I really respect, and I still love them, and we're still friends, and I don't counter signal them, and I totally get it, but a lot of people have turned on Trump for obvious reasons. His stance with abortion and IVF has really loosened up and taken sort of a left turn. He's been, championing the stapling green cards to diplomas and all that stuff, and it's sad to see he's been sort of courting sort of the degenerate left and centrist vote. But what I will say, and my priest had a good homily about this, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, about the principle of double effect or cooperation with evil. And what it comes from, the scripture that it comes from, is when the Pharisees are trying to trip Christ up, and they ask him, should they pay taxes to Caesar? Should they pay tribute? And he said, bring me one of their coins. And he took the coin and he said, whose face is this? Whose inscription is this? And they said, well, that's Caesar's. And he said, okay, so render unto Caesar's what's Caesar's, render unto God what's God's. And what our priest basically said in elaboration is that we, to the extent that a good can be brought out of an evil that can't necessarily be avoided, like, for instance, voting for Trump, because while his stances on abortion and IVF and like gay marriage and all of that weird degenerate stuff that he's been promoting, or at least, tolerating in his ranks, the good that comes out of that is our opposition. And I know a lot of people are tired of hearing the lesser of two evils or whatever. His opposition is significantly worse. So if your choice is, you can either vote for the guy who is going to protect some of the babies from being killed, over somebody who is openly championing like late birth abortion or partial birth abortion or whatever, is talking about making Roe like federal law and forcing all states to make abortion legal and opening it up like into the third trimester and beyond, we as Catholics have an obligation to vote for the lesser of two evils. First of all, we are obligated to participate in the democratic process insofar as we live in a democratic country. It's a duty of every Catholic citizen. But I completely understand why people are disillusioned with Trump. I was a huge Trump guy in 2016. I was a huge Trump guy in 2020. I still firmly believe that the election was stolen from him in 2020. I believe they tried really hard to steal it from him in 2016, but they just had no idea he was going to win. He was going to get so many votes. They thought he was a clown. And then 2020, they pulled out all the stops. But we all watched it happen. We all watched them dumping ballots at 4 a.m. We watched the water main break at the ballot center, and then they were putting the pizza boxes and the cardboard up against the windows. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on with the drop boxes and the mail-in ballots and duplicates and dead people and people that don't exist voting and all that stuff. So like, it's very obvious that they tried to screw him. So my take on it is, as a Catholic, I think, because of the principle of double effect or cooperation with evil, I think the lesser of two evils, for lack of a better term, it's Trump. He might not be the best ever, but I mean, he's better than the opposition. And if it means that we're going to save at least some unborn children, I don't think their lives are some political football. I see a lot of people in our circles saying like, well, if we have Trump lose this election in 4 years, maybe we'll get like, an Uncle A, the Austrian painter, in 4 years. But in the meantime, during those 4 years, A, we might lose our right to express ourselves completely. B, who knows how many countless unborn babies are going to be killed as a result of Kamala's policies. C, who knows how much worse the border situation is going to get. How many of those illegal immigrants, of which there are probably like 50 to 100 million in this country by this point, are going to be given amnesty, and not just a path to citizenship, but just blanket citizenship. Ronald Reagan did it in the 90s. So if you don't think Kamala Harris is going to do it, think again. But I do, at this point, I feel a little cringe standing Trump, because it's just kind of a depressing state of affairs. I watched the RNC and it was just an absolute clown show, and it's hard as like a hardline Catholic and sort of an edgy right-wing guy who loves his people, loves white people, loves Europeans, wants Catholicism to be upheld and the unborn to be protected, to openly promote Trump. But I personally, I don't see there being another choice. I don't think abstaining from voting is really going to help anybody. But I also, like I said, I understand anybody that's doing that. I'm not trying to disparage them or call them stupid or question their moral state or anything like that. That's my take on it.
You want to know what's going to happen? I can't tell you what's going to happen in the next 4 years, but I know what's going to happen in the next couple of months, at least with a modicum of certainty. First of all, in a few days, when the election finally happens, there's going to be so much hoopla about it, and no matter who is the projected winner, there's going to be an uprising from the other side in some form or another. Now, as we know, like whether due to agent provocateurs embedded within the populace, or whether it's organic, somebody's going to do something stupid, and that's going to set off a chain reaction. That chain reaction is more than likely going to involve a lot of those illegals that you spoke about, and when confrontations escalate into skirmishes, they escalate into gun battles. And if we learned anything about the summer of 2020, that was just a taste. Like, sure, we had shootings, but full-on armed conflict between factions, we're not ready for that. A lot of people aren't. And what a lot of people don't know is that many of these illegals that have been snuck in under our borders are actually UN troops. I don't know if you heard about that. But once the fighting starts between the natives, I'll say the natives, like the people who are from here, and the illegals. Once the fighting in earnest begins, in that those troops are going to be activated. And for some people, it's going to be a nightmare. For some of us, it's going to be blueberry season, but it's going to be chaos either way. So you can expect a lot of infrastructure being attacked. You can expect a lot of attempts by the government under probably eminent domain or something to try to do some more land grabs. There's a strong possibility that the sitting administration would probably just kick something off overseas, maybe another false flag, maybe another Gulf of Tonkin, and then enact the War Powers Amendment. And they just stay in power for until the war is over. And of course, they don't intend to let the war end. So we got a lot stacked against us, but yeah, no, there's some good things that can come out of it. For example, if we broke into a civil war right now, if it was just versus the right and the left, 80% chance the right wins, easily. But that's why the elites that have been in power for so long, that have been driving hundreds of millions of people into our country, that don't share our values, that don't care about our lives, they don't care about our cities, they don't care about our kids, that's for sure. And eventually, Americans are going to get pissed and somebody's going to start shooting. And it's just going to tumble like a snowball from there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think this is a really good time in that spirit to remind everybody, if you're not praying your rosary every day, please pray your rosary every day. Whether or not you plan to vote, what you can do is seek the intercession of Our Lady and of the saints, and pray to our Lord to protect this country, to protect the world, to keep any more wars from breaking out. We don't want any more wars. We do not support any more wars. We are done being the world police. They are trying to kick something off with Iran. A lot of people have been saying that they're going to try to have Trump, taken care of, and then they're going to blame it on Iran, and whether that's the Kamala Harris administration or the Trump Vance administration, that they're going to use that as a pretext to go to war with Iran. Whatever it is they're planning on doing, whatever conflict is coming to the United States, it's not going to be good. And even if there's not conflict, if Trump somehow gets in and they're doing the mass deportations, like Father Pimpson was saying, people are not ready for what's coming. They're going to start seeing the news stories and the videos of families getting deported, and people are going to get squeamish really quick. So whatever it is that's to come for this country, whatever it is that's to come for this world, please, if you don't have a prayer habit yet, start building it right now. Start building a prayer habit. And not for nothing, start getting prepared with, clean water and food, non-perishable food. And, if you don't have a storm shelter, get a storm shelter, get yourself some ammo, get yourself some firearms. Not saying to go out and commit any violence, but you have to be prepared to protect the innocent and the defenseless, your family, your life, your stronghold, whatever it is. Pray, ask, specifically under the title of Virgin Most Powerful, but any of the titles of Our Lady, ask for her intercession, ask for the intercession of the saints, implore our Lord to have mercy on us for the many, many innumerable sins the United States is constantly committing, and all of her people are committing and bringing to the world, all of the scandal that we're foisting upon the rest of the world. Get your prayer habit going, start praying the rosary every day, and maybe by the grace of God, even though this country deserved to be Sodom and Gomorrah like 500 million times up to today, maybe things will get better. Maybe we'll get through it, and maybe there will be some light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, so I'm gonna act like a very good European and, share my opinions on someone else's politics, because our country has been a project by the United States for a very long time, and we thank John MacArthur, not the one who's blaspheming Our Lady, by the way, the hero John MacArthur, who came here and fought with our people to fight off the Japanese invaders here, right? So most of our culture is westernized, we wouldn't have access to the modern world without, well, Westerners. I started with Spain and then with America. And I have friends and family who are living in the States. I'm not going to dox you, but hey, cousins, if you see this, please don't put your name as a comment on, you know, any of the videos here. Don't dox yourselves. I know who you voted for. I mean, we grew up together, so like we have telepathy. We I can tell what your political opinions are, and don't get canceled. I have nephews and nieces there, and it's either way you go, you're gonna get canceled. But so as a good European myself, here is my opinion on American politics. I think that if Trump does win, he will just delay. Let's say, for example, there won't be any war, any major war. There's war going on all over the world, but if Trump gets into office and he doesn't instigate the major war, he'll just delay the inevitable because he won't be able to run for president the next time around. And who did they put as his heir or successor? JD Vance, who's a never Trumper, and this is just my opinion, who might be a CIA plant, right? I mean, if you look around all of like all his background and where he gets his funding and who's funding him, eventually they will go to war because uh, if you look at the map and start with the 1948 map or even earlier than that, and then start with a new map. They're planning to get the from the Nile down to the Euphrates and then to the Mediterranean. That's how big of an area that they're trying to take. So, and most of these countries are in the way. They've done it systematically. They did it with Iraq. They said that there's weapons of mass destruction. They massively destroyed lives of millions of people, and they spent the like the life and limb of their own citizens. American soldiers were deployed to the Middle East for a war that they didn't care about, and for I don't want to start the conspiracy rabbit hole here, but grow up, learn to read, and learn to do your own research without the bias of taking any side from this. I gotta tell you, American soldiers have been deployed all over the world. They've been dying. They've been coming home. They've been maimed, and then when they do come home, no one's taking care of them. Right? I know 3 veterans in real life who still communicate with me that they were taken out of their jobs because it was given to a diversity hire after they served the military for 15 years. They come home homeless. They don't have any jobs. No one's taking care of their health insurance. And you want more war? You can't even take care of the people who came home, after serving your interests. Like, it's not your interests. What does America have anything to do with the Middle East other than it's being used as an attack dog for the interests of a small minority
I'll
that's
tell you.
running the financial system, right? They're
You want to
running the
know? You want to know why? I'll tell you. Contrary to popular belief, they did in fact find weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They just didn't think it was what it was. Turns out that weapon was financial independence from the central banking system they wanted to install. If you remember
right.
correctly, when they killed Saddam and they infiltrated this compound, they found literal tons of gold bars. And he was stacking up, getting ready to separate his country from the dollar. They did the same thing to Muammar Gaddafi back in Libya. And before that, Libya was a prospering economy. And then right after that, they completely destabilized the entire region. Once
Yeah.
Gaddafi fell, the rest of the Middle East went with him.
Right. And that's their interest. It's not the interest of every single American because even if I'm not American, I'm humble enough to admit that America is the greatest country on earth. And even that's why we have to make it Catholic, right? Because
Let's
if
go.
America's gonna be the world's police, then it should police the world with Catholic moral theology, with the best military technology ever. No one's gonna say, "Oh, I'm not gonna go to mass." You'll just point all of your F-15 fighter jets to that parish, and everyone will go to mass. All right. So, I'm trying not to lose my train of thought here, but the issues in the Middle East. I mean, the U.S. can produce its own oil. So if people are going to say, "Oh, we need to secure the oil fields," no, you didn't. You secured um, the 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 fields in Afghanistan that were creating this drug empire, and you're using military personnel from the United States to do it. So I mean, we know all of this, right? So for the people who say that this is just conspiracy babble, grow up and understand that if Trump does win and there's not a major war that happens, you'll just delay the inevitable. What you should change and what you should push back on is that you focus on your country first. Your borders are open. Your veterans are committing suicide 22 men a day. That's horrible. These guys, promised that they would uphold the Constitution and protect you from threats, domestic and international, and you don't even care about them. Take care of your people first. 70% of Americans are obese. They have type 2 diabetes. They have heart problems. Clean up your food, right? Stop making the frogs gay and stop using your own people to further the interests of the same people who hate you. It's obvious. Look at the Federal Reserve System in an objective manner. It's destroying your money and it's destroying your lives. People used to afford cars. They used to afford houses with one income. Now people have to do two jobs at once, three jobs at once to just even get by, right? Fix your country first and be isolationist. If China does invade the Philippines, I'm going to go and fight them, right? And maybe the Philippines will be wiped out, but fix America first. If you're going to police this world, police it with Catholic moral theology, with the strongest military on earth. That's my European opinion.
And I really quick, and I'd like to go to Barnes after this because I just wanted to contribute this before that as quickly as I can. Read the book, A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind. This talks about how this very problem about the world banking system, about usury, about control of finance has been a problem since the dawn of man, and how it has followed a specific group of people from one country to the next, how they essentially drain a country of all of its resources, get kicked out. That country then experiences a golden age once they kick them out. Then they move to another country and do it. But also, just to give Trump his due, because a lot of people seem to forget about this, and I think a lot of people are maybe on the younger side, so they weren't really like politically aware. Trump was the only candidate who said Iraq was a mistake from the very beginning, even before he ran for office. He's the only candidate who did not, he's the only president in my life that did not start a new war. There were literally dozens of false flags that should have started World War III under his presidency, and he did nothing about them. He ignored them. The one thing he did, and he catches a lot of flack for this, was bomb that Syrian Air Force base. And what did he do? He literally called the Russians and told them, you got to get out. The Russians told the Syrians, you got to get out. He ended up bombing an empty airfield on purpose for a show of force, just to say that he did something. If there has ever been a president that deserves a second chance at trying to get America to take care of itself and not give the people who want the war another war, not give them the reaction to the false flags that they constantly pull off to trick the American people into supporting more of these military interventions, it's the one guy who, when he was president, didn't do any of that stuff. He might not be perfect. He might not be everything that we wanted him to be, everything that we dreamed him to be, but he didn't go for, he is not a pro-war president. He didn't bite on the false flags. And I mean, he recognized that Iraq was a mistake since the very beginning. So that's my piece about Trump.
Yeah, and that's all very true. And I think as far as Trump goes, for me, like, I understand, like almost everybody in, I want to say, the new right, which I guess you can consider all of us a part of. A lot of us do recognize, like, one glaring fact is that he did kiss the Wailing Wall. But if you listen to him talk, and you listen to him talk about his first term, especially in the most recent Rogan episode, and he talks about how he didn't know anybody in D.C. You know, he had only been to D.C. like a handful of times. And it was all for real estate business. You know, he had just sold a building down on Pennsylvania Avenue, just down the road from the White House itself, before he started running. But when you listen to him talk, like, he's in a lot of ways, he's still a boomer, you know. So I think that could be part of the reason why he's shilling so hard for Israel for the rest of them. But I was always taught that you shouldn't attribute to malice what could be attributed to incompetence. And so I think a lot of the ways he just doesn't know what he's doing. Um, but it's still, we should definitely keep a close eye on him, especially with some of the rhetoric he's been releasing lately. And
I just want
to your
to
point,
respond.
Mystic, I'm sorry. But to your point, Mystic, earlier about the drugs coming from Afghanistan, I wanted to know, even though you live in the Philippines, I want to know, like, have you ever heard of the movie American Gangster with
Yes.
Denzel Washington? Okay,
Denzel
cool.
Washington. Yep. Yep.
Yes. So, what a lot of people, even to this day, don't realize about the Vietnam War is that essentially, like, all of that was started on purpose. You know, and you see in American Gangster, the man Frank Lucas's connect is one of his cousins who's in the military, and he's able to bribe his way to get C-130s loaded with heroin in the coffins meant for dead soldiers.
Right.
And he's cutting the government part of it, cutting Uncle Sam in on the deal, because Uncle Sam's always trying to fund the next big thing. And when the Vietnam War finally ended, and that supply line, their excuse for maintaining that supply line dried up, they immediately started funding the Mujahideen over in Afghanistan, who were originally what we considered our homies because they were fighting the Soviets in the caves and whatnot. But guess what? Uncle Sam was getting in return a whole bunch of opium and a whole bunch of heroin to make it with.
Right.
So it's always when when anybody in the government says "In God We Trust," just remember their God stands for gold, oil, and drugs. So
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I
Just look
just
at
want to
history
touch on a
and
couple of things,
yes.
man.
Yeah. Go for it, man. It's your time
Okay.
to cook.
Something that Base Faith TV said, and also something for the Pumpson said over here. Okay. I'm South African, and for many years, right, we had issues in the country, obviously due to apartheid and all these racial issues, where people for generations have been saying, "Hey, South Africa is going to go to a civil war. It's inevitable. They're going to fight," and all this racial conflict and everything. Yes, there's always aggression and small conflicts that do actually happen. That's not massively reported on. And obviously, there is targeting of some people based on their race and ethnicity. It did actually get to a point where my people, which are, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it actually got to a point where my people, we're called colored people or mixed race people. I know that's like a derogatory term in the US, but in our country, that's our ethnic group, right? It means that we are a mixture of different races and everything. So we are, during apartheid, we were isolated into, or we were segregated into different groups. The Asians and Indians and everybody, they were put with the mixed race people, and then you have the white people and you have the black people right on one side. So we were the buffer between the black and the white people. And so obviously it wasn't a great system. And once that system came to an end, there was a lot of things that could have eventually led to a major conflict, right, between the different groups. But by the grace of God, right, we managed to get to a point now where the leading party or the ruling party, they used to have almost 80% of the votes, right? They're now at a point where they have between 40 and 50% of the vote in a direct democracy, and things are getting better now due to the power being distributed amongst different parties. So they have to actually work together to have to win support from the people. In the US, my biggest issue, right, is just the two-party system, where I think it's actually just one party and it's optically divided into two parties. And I think it's just like a performance. And I've noticed both sides actually cater to a specific group who they both believe obviously have the most political influence. And with Trump going to, for instance, Israel and kissing the Wailing Wall, this is not a hateful or derogatory thing I'm saying to that specific people. If they watch this, they'll know who they are. It's not a thing against them in general, but disproportionately, that group of people, they do control a lot of things in the US, from media to politics to the financial system to all of these, right? Even the weapons and even I think now with the exports and imports with the food and also with raw materials, they have a hand in a lot of that disproportionately. And I think to please them, both candidates from both parties do a little performance to try to win support because, in general, it could be this is my conspiracy theory. It could be that there is no actual democracy or republic in the US. It's just an intelligence agency controlling everything. And that intelligence agency has a lot of these specific people from that group, and they're performing for them to try to win power. And as long as that group or that cabal knows that, hey, we're going to be fine, they're not going to give us any resistance, verify, put through, no issue. And that's how it is when I observe the US. So the one thing that I think would actually fix that is just the two-party system falling apart and something else emerging. So whichever way that's going to happen, be it whichever way, that would be for the best for the US people. But with your comments, Father Pimson, it was like, I don't think it could actually be that extreme where there would be such a major conflict. I think people should be more hopeful. Things can be resolved politically. And I think a lot of people, they don't have the taste for violence because once things get bad, people don't understand how bad things can get and how brutal things can get, right? I think a lot of them will turn away and they'll turn to reason, and things would actually go a lot better for the people overall because they don't want severe conflict, especially in a country as the US, which is probably the most prosperous country in the world, right? And has the most control. So they don't want that level of chaos. And I've seen a lot of chaos in my life, right? I grew up in a very gang-infested area where many bad things happen. And when I started gaining comfort in my life and my living situation improved, it's not something that I would just give up, right? And I think a lot of people in the US, especially the older generation and the ones in power, once their lifestyles are being affected, things will calm down very quickly.
Yeah. Before. Oh, yeah. Go for it, man. Sorry.
I don't know how
No,
much you
please.
guys heard from that because I see all the images have frozen.
No, I think we heard all of it. I
No,
heard
we
all
were
of it.
actually paying attention, and that's why we were not moving.
But yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, and I know a lot of people are going to say this is
Did
cope.
you guys get that?
What?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. A lot of people are going to say this is cope, but it's simply the reality. And it's a terrible reality, and I wish it wasn't the reality, but if you don't kiss the Wailing Wall, you're simply not going to win the election. You do not have the option. I think if you don't pander to that group, if you don't go to AIPAC, if you don't shill for Israel, they will not allow you to be elected. And it goes to Bahrain's point, and to probably something that we all agree on. There's a uniparty in the United States that controls everything. The Republicans and Democrats are virtually no different. It's like the Democrats are always charging forward and the Republicans at best kind of like slow them down a little bit, but they say Republicans are just Democrats in slow motion. And that's really what it is. But I do think with a powerful enough vote, with a mandate from the people or a mandate of heaven or whatever they call it, if there was a powerful enough election to where it really showed that the American people truly wanted a candidate, I think you could, in theory, make it undeniable that we wanted the person that the powers that be didn't want. And it's possible in the ideal circumstances for somebody who wants to do the right thing to sneak in, kind of play their cards right and get in and maybe do the right thing. I'm not necessarily the most hopeful about it, especially after waiting from 2015 to 2020 for Trump to do literally anything about the corruption and the treason and the subversion So that's my bit on the uniparty. It's a bleak situation, but Trump, if he didn't shill for Israel, if he didn't have the Adelsons as his top donors, if he didn't go kiss the wall, if he didn't cozy up to AIPAC and the Jews, you would never get anywhere in the election. Nobody would, simply because that's how the power structure is set up in the United States, and indeed in the free world, in the Western world, the free world. But I also wanted to ask a little bit, because you obviously are, Barnes, you're from South Africa, so you have a much more intimate understanding of this situation. But from where I'm sitting in the United States, the situation in South Africa, and I'm not necessarily old enough to have experienced what the coverage was like of apartheid back then, but I see now kind of a reflection of the civil rights movement in the United States, where it was like, for a long time, certain groups that we've been discussing sort of jammed it into the heads of the American people that segregation's the worst thing ever, and we need to integrate everybody, and we need to integrate the schools. And then what happened as a result is skyrocketing violent crime, skyrocketing sexual crime. Like, schools are doing worse, the graduation rates are worse, there's murders happening all over the place. And then you look at South Africa, and maybe it's just the circles I run in, but as a result of the end of apartheid, what I've been seeing from South Africa, and please feel free to put your input on this, because I'm not from there, I'm an American, so I have a very, America-centric understanding of world affairs. It seems like white people, it's just open season on white people. I see as a new story like every day of white farm families being absolutely mercilessly slaughtered on their own property, just having their homes broken into and hacked up with machetes and bludgeoned to death. And it seems a lot like, whereas civil rights in the United States it might have been good in its inception, maybe the idea was good, maybe the intention was good, but what it has ultimately resulted in is the disenfranchisement of all white people, regardless of their level of power or lack thereof, and the wholesale slaughter of white people and their way of life. That's kind of what it looks like is going on in South Africa right now, in my opinion. But again, I'm an American, so you'll have to take my opinion on it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Before we proceed, I'd just like to let you guys know that we have
I'm just going to
we're gonna
respond
close
to
it.
that. Hopefully, you guys can
Uh,
hear me clearly, because I'm going to try to put this.
can you hear me, Barons? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah, I can
okay.
hear you.
Yeah, I just like to inform everybody. We'll be closing the stream out in 28 minutes, and there's three questions here. We'll answer it after Baron's response to Punished Faith TV. So here's one of the questions. It says, "Is the new right going to be a secular new right or a Christian new right?" That's the first question. But yeah, Barons, please respond, and we'll get to the questions before we close it out.
Okay, so I'm going to try to put my thoughts together and articulate it to the best of my ability. So I had various views in my youth, right? And obviously, I have a lot of. My dad's white. Um, my mom, obviously, I look like my mom and her people. So it's very important to understand, right, that I did grow up in a colored area. We were segregated by race during apartheid, and a lot of the older generation of people. First, I'll give their type of view of the general view of the people that I've dealt with. Right, a lot of the people would agree with you, and they'll be like, "Hey, things were better during apartheid. Things were functioning a lot better." Um, and people were a lot safer. You could leave your door open at night and there wouldn't be any crime. Uh, Economically, things were better, even if the majority of the people by race couldn't take part in higher earning jobs. They had to have either mid to low income jobs, whether it's working at a mine or working as a office assistant or something like that. They couldn't really be the CEO of a company. So even that mid to low income earner could afford a house. He could pay for food for his family, all that stuff, right? So that is possibly what you would view as the positives. Lower crime, all of that. But growing up, I had a lot of different views, and my first view is this: I'm a lot happier being free and not being forced to live a certain way. Right? Obviously, force is how you control things, but to persecute people based on their race and to bully them accordingly. And this includes the white people, because white people couldn't even dissent against the state either, and a lot of them were against the system. Um, they did not like what they saw the police and the military do to black and brown people. They were against it. And obviously, that's why during the 1990s, as we exited the apartheid era and as we moved into the new South Africa, racial segregation ended. And we really tried full on, the country really tried to resolve the people's animosity towards each other. There was obviously a lot of radicals, and this is probably going to be my most extreme view on the show. The ruling party, which is the ANC, is a terrorist party by nature. So it would kind of be like putting Hamas in charge of the country. It's just that particular party looked to the US and they saw the civil rights movement, and then they adopted a lot of the behavior of, for instance, Martin Luther King, and they tried that messaging. So underneath, they're a communist radical party, and then above that, they put on a nice facade of, we know we're a civil rights movement, we want to win over the people and all that. So fortunately, they morphed and mutated into something more or less radical and just more corrupt. And so when they finally got into power with Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela was the first democratically elected president in South Africa, right? Now, we were told when I was growing up that Nelson Mandela is the hero of the nation. There's nothing that he did bad. He was locked up for like 27 years. He was innocent in everything. We didn't know really he was a terrorist and he was plotting terror attacks, right? So this isn't something that we were made aware of. We were just led to believe that he was innocent and this is the hero of our nation. And fortunately, during that 27 years of him being in prison, it did re-radicalize him. So he didn't want any smoke when he came out, right? He wanted a peaceful life. He spent he spent a lot of years locked up, and obviously he had lots of family, and I think that was his motivation. But his wife at the time, Winnie Mandela, her famous quote is this: "She will liberate the country with her petrol and sorry, what is it? Her tires and her matches." So what they used to do to the other black people to keep them in control was this: if you are a dissenter and you're isolated in that group, right? Because we're racially segregated. If you have any objections to them and you try to start your own party, which is more less radical, it's more for the benefit of black people, what they would do is they would burn you alive in the streets in front of everybody. And that would force you by fear to either support them or to remain quiet. And so when that party mutated, became corrupt, less radical, less violent, they kind of ousted him into a silent figure. So he divorced the president at the time, married somebody more moderate. And due to that, I fortunately got to grow up in a very peaceful state, had more crime, sure. And that eventually led to the farm attacks that you saw. So the majority of farm attacks is not due to race, right? It's due to just being isolated and due to opportunism, right? So now the people, the criminals, they say, hey, I can get to that farm. It's going to take 1 to 2 hours for a cop to get here. I'm going to be perfectly fine. But there's also some very extreme, hateful people that obviously do very violent things to people based on their race, okay? And there's a lot of brutal stories that you can read about, things that they've done to people, kids and everything. It's very bad. And yes, so underlying there is a racial element to some attacks. It's the minority, but it's extremely brutal. Fortunately now, the radicals, which have sprung up and followed in the footsteps of Nelson Mandela's divorced wife, right? They are losing power and they're losing favor with the people because the primary concerns of the people, obviously in a majority black country, they want food, education, job security. These are the things that's most important to them. The radicals' promises is we're going to give them the land, we're going to give them the resources. So they're continuing on with that bottom layer, right? That original radical communist mindset. And you can see it in the imagery that they use for their parties with the first lamb and the sickle and all of that. And so they are trying to win people over with that bottom layer, but the morphed, mutated version, the corruption, actually worked to the benefit of the nation, right? Because now the people are so over those two old systems of doing things that they're looking forward to a newer, more hopeful South Africa. And I think due to the ANC losing power, and it's not black radicals, nationalist parties that's really dominating, it's people that's more moderate. And so the more moderate they become, more divided the power is, the more they have to win the favor of the people, and they have to do that with actually delivering services. And they can't just be spewing stupid nonsense about we're going to seize the land, we're going to seize the assets, we're going to seize the farms and all of that. So overall, that's just my view on things that's happening in South Africa. But I will say, as things are changing, I moved to the Philippines, and Philippines is a lot poorer than South Africa as a country, right? But the attitude of the people in Philippines is so much better, right? They could be the poorest person on the street. They have a very positive and friendly attitude towards the people. And even where I live now, I can actually leave my door open and nothing will actually happen to me. So here's my last hot take. In the 90s and 80s, as apartheid was coming to an end, a lot of European and Western leaders looked to South Africa and they thought, oh, this is a great idea. So let's adopt this model and let's export it. And so this is what we see a lot with London, right? Because London now looks like a lot of places in South Africa.
Okay, so we're gonna proceed to our small Q&A here. Everyone will have their turn. Of course, we'll start with Father Pimpson because he's wearing a chain. And was that beer? You should give some to us, dude. Like, please make
I
sure
got
to
a
give
fridge.
some to us.
I got a fridge almost full of them. My boss told me to just leave them like just a 6 pack, bro. They're actually not bad. This is my first one. It's Natural Light Natter Days Strawberry Lemonade.
Oh,
All
Natty
right, that's
Light
cool.
brings me
Yo,
back to my high school days.
yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have a beer later. We're gonna have our first question of this Q&A. Someone sent this to me. They're asking, is the new right going to be a secular right or a Christian new right? Father Pimpson, go ahead.
There's going to be a lot of infighting at first because there are a lot of pagan and Jewish infiltrators. We're just going to go ahead and get that out of the way. There's plenty of those. You can just take a 5-minute scroll down my timeline. I've memed more than my fair share of them into oblivion. Um, but no, they're vocal, but they're also a very small minority. So without a doubt, in my opinion, we're in the end we win. Jesus has never lied to us once, and he darn sure didn't lie to us when he said, "He who endures to the end shall be saved." And guess who's sticking around? And it's not going to be the pagans, bud.
Right. So let's go to Punished Faith TV. Go for it.
I have to agree. I mean, we're going to deal with our infiltrators and our subverters, but I do think there's also a lot of people that, you know, never grew out of the edgy phase, and maybe they're like genuine people, but they're just a little bit brainwashed. But they're going to come along. They're going to come along. And we talked about this a little bit before, and Father Pimpson kind of picked up on what we were talking about, which is sort of the aspect of lovingly, charitably bullying people into loving Christ and to thinking that being Christian is cool. It's the cool way to be, and not being like, oh, magic bearded sky daddy kind of stuff. But it's definitely going to be a Christian movement. I think you see the momentum swinging heavily in favor of Christianity, and in particular Catholicism, with the younger crowd on the right. And then you have people like James Lindsay trying to paint our circles, like the more religious right, the Catholic and Christian right, as woke right. And I don't know who that messaging works on. Like, that's the cringiest. The word woke hasn't been relevant for like 2 years already, and this idiot is out there trying to meme Christian right-wingers into the woke right. Oh, you guys, you're for modesty and against porn. Well, you're the woke right because you're trying to do what the left does. And it's like, well, That's what people want. People are tired of being held back. And like, I saw somebody made an awesome post earlier. I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about how like for the past 80 or so years, the United States, the left and the right kind of had like this idea that we were part of the same team, but we just had different ways of going about it. But the right just didn't realize the left has always seen us as enemies. The right saw them as countrymen that we have to work with and try to like figure out a middle ground. And now we're just starting to realize that the left has brought a knife to a boxing match, and they're getting in their stabs while the ref is telling the right don't go for any low blows. So it's like everything is against us, but people are tired of being told don't go for any low blows, don't fight back too hard, we're all Americans, we all share the same country, we're all good people, and just like us reading positive intent into our enemies. But they are our enemies, and I think the right is starting to realize we have to fight back. We are starting to fight back, and the ones that really are doing most of the fighting are the Christians and the Catholics. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me specifically, which is weird because I have like no clout or reach online, especially now, and tell me that like the reason that they might be discerning Catholicism or the reason that they're interested in it is because they see us, they see people like us out there actually fighting and like trying to help people come to the truth and come to righteousness, come to the Lord, come to the church. And we are fighting back against the enemies in a way that is positive, is effective, and leads to something transcendent and not just, talking points and memes. But those are definitely effective. But yeah, there's no question. We're going to be a Christian right and not secular. We're done with secular. We're done with modernism.
All right, Barons, your turn.
I don't really consider myself right wing anymore. I'm Catholic, and to keep this short, that's the future. The future is Catholic.
All right. Well, here's my short opinion here because I have to live up to my European genetics, right? So I have to state my opinion on everyone else's. I have to impose a tax on tea. Um, but what I'm trying to look for here is that the people who say that it's going to be a secular right, and this is just anecdote, right, and this is based on observation here in real life and on social media, the people who are saying that it's going to be a secular right are the ones who are going to irrelevance. These are the 60, 70-year olds, octogenarian politicians who think that the answer is you have to work with the enemy to make society better. And the reason why they say it's going to be secular is because Catholics should never work with the enemy. We are called to destroy evil and not compromise on it, right? So even though everybody has to play this game in the short term where we have to either vote or abstain. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, right? Because your judge is God. Let him judge you for your actions. But Christians in general, and well, Catholics are Christians, right? Um, it has been the mantra of Christianity that we must fight evil, not compromise with it. That's why you hear us say we should abolish abortion. We should allow people to be married and work out their marriages, instead of divorcing. And we should not permit gay marriage and ban surrogacy, IVF, bikinis. All of this gooner crap should be eliminated from society. That's what our stance is. And the people who want us to be secular don't want what we want. They're going to lump us all with all those psychopathic secular people who think that it's okay for um, like Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, to have dead babies in his laptop as long as Trump loses, right? These are the same type of people who don't want us to win. But here's the thing: most of the young generation see not just us. There's better people than us, right? They see Father Mike Schmitz and they're doing Bible in a year. These people used to like not get involved in politics, but through the faith they are now involved in politics. You see a lot of pictures of young people doing prayer rallies all over the world. It will be a Catholic right. And Catholics are always right as long as they do not separate themselves from the one true faith, as long as they stay in communion and abide by Catholic moral theology. they will always be right, even though they disagree on small things like McDonald's, Jollibee, because we know that Wendy's is the best. This is objective scientific data that Wendy's is the best and Coors Light is okay, right? So I think that's going to be my answer for that. There's another question here that was sent to us. It says here, is Catholic integralism an option for a Protestant America? We're going to start with Father Pimson on this one because he's the most American.
So by integralism, are we saying like integration of the churches, like a new ecumenical council?
It's going to be that the law will be Catholic moral theology, and there will be either a monarch or an emperor that will be under the authority of the Pope. So basically, it's a state that's run by the church, but with a figurehead like an emperor.
Hmm.
You think it's an option for quote unquote Protestant America?
I think that unfortunately there's a very small population within the Protestant diaspora of the world that they have this they have a lot of preconceived notions about Catholicism, but never really studying it from the source material. And we got to break that. We've got to break that habit in people, first of all. We've got to encourage people to actually do the legwork and look into it instead of just repeating something they heard on Facebook from an edgy meme site. I mean, how many times can you honestly say, the dumb Catholic priest jokes before you start to think to yourself, dude, am I boring? Like, for crying out loud, for over the last half century, the Catholics have been the butt of every single joke. And now there's 1.4 billion of us. So I'm not blackpilling, but I am going to say, like, there is going to be a staunchly, willfully naive, and there will be some others who are just, what's the word? They're committed to willfully misunderstanding the true gospel and what it says. I can't tell you how many times I've seen and heard stories of, oh, well, I pick this denomination or this religion because it fits better with me. It's not supposed to fit with you. You're supposed to fit with God. Okay? And too many people don't realize that. And the problem is they're gambling with their souls.
Right. We'll have Barons next on this one. Barons,
You there,
you
bro?
have next. Yeah, brother, can you hear us?
Look, I've already said at the beginning of this stream that I'm for theocracy or Catholic monarchy. So basically, Catholic teaching is a good basis for civil law, right? I don't think any Protestant could actually disagree with the vast majority of things that would be implemented. For instance, the banning of abortion, first and foremost. Degeneracy in society as well, that would be tackled. So they would be in agreement with 99.9% of what would be implemented. With the authority structure, they may actually have a lot of issues regarding that. For instance, we saw that in the 1600s with the 16th century with the Reformationists using nationalism as a point of dissent against the Catholic Church, making the Catholic Church into some foreign other body. And then their own leaders led them into a whole corrupt downhill slope of secularism. But I think modern Protestants, especially the devout ones, would have very little issues with Catholic teaching being the basis for law.
Right. Based Faith TV.
Yeah, I mean, short answer to the question specifically, no, I don't think Catholic integralism is an option for Protestant America, but I think it belies the question, or rather the solution, which is that America needs to be made at least open to Catholic, if not Catholic. And I think eventually we're going to see that. And Mystic and I talked about that on our just conversation the other night, that eventually, whether people know it or accept it or not, everyone is going to become Catholic. The Muslims are going to become Catholic, Buddhists and Jews and everybody, they're all going to be Catholic. But I don't know when or how that's going to happen. I think we just keep pushing forward with stuff like this and spreading the truth about Catholicism and sort of debunking these ridiculous myths about papism and Romanist papist voodoo idol worshippers. Eventually it's going to get to a point where, like Varen said, a lot of Protestants, especially, we have a lot of good Protestant friends from back in the Facebook days and now on Twitter, that I think they're going to see the things that we champion and the policies that we want to see enacted in a Catholic integralist sort of nation, and they're going to have a hard time disagreeing with it. I think it's just a matter of us sort of disclosing it to people, and then eventually they can accept it, or we can just impose it. But yeah, eventually it's going to happen. But no, as long as it's a Protestant America, they're not just going to accept Catholic integralism. That just means we have to make America Catholic.
All right. Well, my answer for this question is gonna be a huge black pill to everyone, and this is based off of like real life interactions that I have with Protestants. Since I work with my parish a lot, I talk to people with our charity work, and they can't even get behind charity work, let alone the laws that we would want to implement. Like, for example, the banning of gay marriage. That would be absolute. If Catholics will be in charge and Catholic moral theology is going to be the law, all of the Protestants who are pro gay marriage will be, well, for their own soul, they will be alienated, right? So I'm going to black pill here. And as long as people think that Catholic moral teaching is bad for them, it will never be a system in any part of society, even more so with America. They went to war for a cup of tea. So, if you're gonna if we're gonna say that Catholics are gonna be in charge, they would go to war over that. So, and but there is hope here, because we're our lifetime, even if all of us reach 100 years old, we're only a small speck in the timeline that God has planned out for His return. And what's more important is that we're in a state of grace. We strive to be in a state of grace day by day. That's why we abhor degeneracy. And you should never goon. That's not an option, right? Do 500 push ups if you have to, because you have to be prepared for Jesus to come back, however he chooses to come back. And our hope is that even if we aren't in charge of everything, because there's this temptation. Punish Face TV and I had this private conversation that there's this temptation that we want to be in control of everything, but we must be in control of ourselves first, right? We must be the best Christians that we can ever be in a state of grace, and we should bring people to Jesus. We can bring them with a word. Back then they brought people with the sword, right? Now we have the internet. So we can now find someone's coordinates and send them a free Bible, right? Don't do anything illegal, brothers and sisters in Christ. Send them a Bible, send them a prayer book, or send them the mass schedules. This was probably the easiest thing to do. Screenshot the mass schedule of their area, send it to them, and then say, I'll meet you there. Let's go to mass together. Let's make our war much simpler, because running a country is going to be complicated. Imagine all of the Dems and the Republicans finding out that the College of Bishops and Cardinals are going to be the Senate now. They're going to be the congressmen. All of those war hawks are going to get mad because Boeing won't give them a single dollar because they can't push for war anymore, right? So for Protestant America or anywhere else in the world, integralism is going to be a hard sell. So let's move on to the last question here. They said, how can we support you and where can we find you? Okay, well, this is just basically the first part of the live stream where we plugged everyone, but now's your opportunity. Let's start with our beloved guest here, Father Pimpson. How can they find you and how can they support you?
You can find me on Twitter, on X, formerly Twitter, at sniper_meme lord or Father Pimpson's Holy Crusade. You can also find me on my alt at Pimpsonite, Homer Pimpson. Yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, you can also find me on Instagram at Catholic Extremist.
Based. All right, go for it, buddy.
Of course, I'm Based Faith TV. You can find me pretty much anywhere if you just search Based Faith TV. I'm either at BFTV or at Based FTV or at Based Faith TV or something. I'm on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X. But on X, my Based Faith TV got taken down, so you'll find me at Punished FTV, at Punished FTV. I'm Punished Faith TV because I'm a man denied his following, just like our hero, Venom Snake from the Metal Gear Solid series, if you guys are familiar. But you can also check out my merch. I've also got a couple of designs on my merch shop that I did with Father Pimpson. A couple of awesome designs you can go check out at bonfire.com/store/based. Also, send me tips when I stream. I've got the link in the bottom left of the screen. Nobody has sent me a tip yet, so I don't even know if it shows up on screen when I'm streaming. I would love for somebody to test that out. Do not send me any money or buy any of my merch if you don't have money to throw around. I don't want you putting yourself in a tight spot, but come find me, come follow me, help hold me accountable because I tend to get a little angry and spicy. So I need good Catholics to come and help me maintain my charity and spread the word with love. But come find me at all those places, either Based Faith TV or Punished Faith TV. Just look me up. You'll find me.
All right. Before I plug in all of our social media things here, we have to make sure that you guys are praying your rosary. So go to Black Monk Rosaries, use code Mystic so that you'll have free shipping in the domestic United States. And also make sure to go to the gym, work out, get those muscles going because you have to be fit for the kingdom. Please make sure to follow and check out Disciple Fitness. Use code Mystic to get your gym gear, get those muscles going. And you can find us at Project Mystic DV everywhere. Just put it on Google. I don't know who's pushing our social media content on Google, which is very ironic because most of them probably won't like what we have to say about everything. But yeah, we're on Twitter, and if you want to support our ministry, like local charity work or our prayer guides, we have a Spanish guide and German guide coming out for the Rosary. We'll cover as many languages as humanly possible because we want everybody to be praying your rosary. One Ave Maria improves your aim. Remember that. So if you want to shoot down your enemies and protect your family, your property, and your liberty, pray one Ave Maria every day. So you can find us everywhere on social media. Right now, we're streaming to 7 platforms. Hopefully, we'll be able to stream 7 more platforms moving forward because they probably will just keep us on Twitter and Rumble eventually. It's gonna happen. And one good update here, there is a merch store coming back for Project Mystic DV. It'll be out in 7 days. We still have to figure out the legalities of it because we recently got canceled by the guys who run the financial system, unfortunately. So please stay tuned for that. God bless you. And we would want Father Pimson to lead us into a closing prayer before we call it a night. Go ahead, Father Pimson.
All right, gentlemen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on us sinners. Be with us, be with our brothers here as they attempt to continue spreading the good word. And although we wouldn't wish it on anybody, give us the strength to be prepared for when or if violence comes to our door. Let us not go peacefully in the night, but instead give us the strength to take our swords and guide it through anywhere we need to put it. Give us the courage to stand through oceans of blood and rivers of fire in your holy name, Lord. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
All right, that closes out our live stream for today. And God bless everyone. Bye for now, guys.
Peace out.
Later.